Hey guys, Yankee here, and today I want to be giving my thoughts on Tenchi Muyo OVA 1 Episode 6. This is the end, right? The main story is wrapped up here. We have a special episode that came after the fact, but this is the end of presumably what was going to be the whole series, right? Um, and an episode's going to be packed full when we don't even get an opening. We just get like a couple little credits at the start. We don't even get an opening song. And then we just move right into it. So, last episode, Tenchi blew up. Everybody thinks he's dead. We see that he was saved by, Azaka and Kamidake, the little guardians. I don't know how to describe them. The little tubes, or not little, they're huge, but that were like guarding Aika's ship. They saved him, and he's just in space. Meanwhile, Ryoko, Aika, and Mihoshi think that he's dead. They're just going to go kill Kagato. And then back on Earth, we have Sasami panicking, freaking out. And I'm going to be honest, last episode, I didn't even notice that Sasami didn't go with them. I don't know how. But yeah, she stayed on Earth, and she's freaking out. So we've got a lot of moving parts right now that are going to just all come together. So Aika, Aika, Ryoko, Mihoshi going after Kagato. Mihoshi gets separated and falls into like a different part of the ship. The Soja. Everything about this ship is really interesting. I like its design, but I don't know how to describe it. Like the reflection, right? Like it's basically two like ships almost. Like it's one ship, but it's got like in its reflection is like another space. So Mihoshi ends up in the reflected space through mistakes. And she ends up meeting Washu, who has not been introduced but at this point, even though she was on the cover of episode 5, which I didn't realize until getting the thumbnail for this ready. So Mihoshi gets completely separated and stumbles her way into Washu, like one of the most important characters in the universe. She created Ryoko, she created Ryo-Ohki, she created the Soja. She's a super genius scientist, and more that we'll learn later on. But you just sort of stumble into her in this series, even though she as we go forward, she's this huge presence everyone knows about. So Mihoshi and Washu are just stuck, and they can't do anything. So yeah, we got a lot going on, but we've taken them out. Well, we introduced Washu just to find a way to keep her out of everything. Mihoshi's out of it now. Aika eventually gets beat up by Kagato, and Ryoko does too. And Washu just pulls Aika into this other space that they're in, just to get her out of the way. So we're slowly pulling characters out of the fight, just so we can have Ryoko and Kagato fight for a minute, and then Tenchi come to save her. And that's what happens. So on the other side, while this stuff's going down in the ship, we've got Tenchi and Sasami, who Sasami is linked to a ship called Tsunami, and Tsunami has a human-like appearance. I don't want to talk too much about what we learn later on, so I'm just going to keep it like this, I guess. Tsunami goes into space and saves Tenchi, and basically gives him the pep talk, hey, you're going to go save him, cool. Don't rely on the sword so much. Rely on your own strength. She gives him the pep talk. She sends him off. Kagato, after manhandling Ryoko, is about to blow up Earth when the ship Tsunami, not the person Tsunami, shows up and basically stops it. Where did this ship come from? I have no idea. How did it get here so quick? No idea. A lot of things are just sort of they don't need explanation, I guess. It just happens and that's fine. But boy, we moved through a lot of stuff here without really looking back. Okay, Sasami was linked with a ship this whole time. Okay, it's just here. Okay, Tenchi has magic powers. So we just sort of skip past the explanation here. We're just like, it happens, let's go. We're doing fights and stuff now. Which is fine. And I'm sure, like, I'm sure, like, some of this stuff gets explained later on, but, like, if you're just watching this series and, like, just all this stuff starts happening, I bet people were confused, like, ooh, where did this ship come from? Like, how is Tenchi just able to summon Lighthawk wings that only, like, what was it, the trees are supposed to be able to summon? So yeah, all kinds of things are happening in this episode, but it's not done in a confusing way. Like, everything's easy to follow. There's some information that we just don't touch on, like how the ship Tsunami just showed up, like why Tenchi has the ability to summon Lighthawk wings. Again, we just move past that. But, like, despite all these moving parts right now, this episode wasn't very hard to follow. Like, you understand everything. Especially since, again, as the episode is going along, they're sort of taking characters out of the equation and sort of walling them off. So Tenchi shows up, saves Ryoko, fights Kagato, kills Kagato. The end. That's the episode. It was a lot of fighting. Some new characters introduced in the final episode of your show, which is always an odd choice, but you know what? It worked. It was a good episode. I liked it a lot. The action and stuff was good, like Ryoko using some of her powers that I don't think we ever see again, like when she just makes a giant, like, rock golem version of herself to fight Kagato that gets blown up, but she did a cool thing. There's a really interesting scene where, so we learned last episode, I didn't remember, but, like, Kagato actually has some sort of, he's actually after something. He's looking for some sort of power, energy, something. And in this, we learned that it's specifically he's trying to get to, like, I guess Tsunami, the ship, like, and it's even referred to as, like, the first ship or something. I forget exactly what it's called, but, like, he's after that, and he's looking for that, and he's looking how to access that. Like, we saw that he was interested in, like, the Lighthawk wings in the last episode, and sort of harnessing or gaining control of some sort of power, right? In this, when the Tsunami ship shows up, he's pretty happy about that, and he just grabs it, sucks it into his ship, and he is all about that. And there's a really interesting scene where he's like, Ayaka's unconscious, and he just, like, picks her up, and he's, like, in her mind trying to get information out of her. So he, like, appears to her as Yosho, and she sees through this. It's no big deal, but, like, her body is, like, getting torn apart in strands, and it's, like, a weird horror scene in this episode all of a sudden. There's nothing else like that in the episode. I don't think there's anything else like that in this season of the show. So it kind of came out of nowhere, but, like, yeah, the villain's, like, digging around inside her mind. He's, like, messing with her, I guess, but, like, visually it looked really cool, like, how she was just sort of, like unraveling almost. It almost looked like, you know, like a DNA strand, right? But it's just her flesh. And it's not, like, extremely graphic or anything. There's not blood. But it looks really cool. And just, like, this whole episode is just a lot of cool visuals. Like, Aika and Tenchi's, like, battle outfits, Ryoko's too. Like, they get really cool, like, I don't know where they come from. They're just, like, up here. Again, things that we just sort of skip past because it doesn't really matter too much. But, like, Aika's got a cool battle outfit. Tenchi does too, and then he gets a second one. We see Tenchi in this, like, interesting, like, I assume Jurian battle outfit for 2 seconds. He does, like, a couple, he attacks Kagato a couple times, isn't doing so well, summons the Lighthawk wings himself, and then transforms again. Which also looks neat. Like, everything about, like, the ship design and the costume design and, like, outfits and stuff, really, really great in this show. I really love it a lot. And yeah, and like there was more comedy in this episode than I thought. Like Washu is always silly. I forgot how silly she was in this episode. Like I haven't watched old Tenchi in a while. Like again, the most recent Tenchi stuff I watched was OVA 5, which I made videos on. And there's just not as much fun in the new OVAs anymore because it's just exposition. So there's not as much time to just do silly stuff. Like when Washu and Mihoshi are just trapped. They can't get out of that space that they're in to help Ryoko and Aika. So they're just there. And Mihoshi just doesn't understand how this works. And like Washu just writes out like the whole like, I don't know, theory or whatever, like the explanation for how they're trapped in this thing. And then Mihoshi just still doesn't get it, and she just sort of like sighs and it's like, I don't know what to do with this. Another moment where Mihoshi's like, we have to do something. What can we do? And Washu's like, all right, there's only one thing we can do. And she pulls out the little paper fans and just starts cheering on Ryoko and stuff. I forgot how silly this show could be, I guess. But Washu in particular, especially in newer OVAs, which I don't want to harp on too much, like, again, she's just there for exposition. She is the smartest scientist in the world, so the only time she gets to talk is when she's explaining things for 10 minutes out of a 30-minute episode. But yeah, this was a great episode, a good finale. Despite a bunch of stuff being introduced and then, not explained, it didn't feel incomplete. Like I'm harping on it now because I sort of know some of the explanations and things like that, but when I first watched this, it wasn't an issue. It was just a fun episode, and rewatching it is still a very fun episode of just, we got cool fights, we got an interesting set. We have Kakuto playing the space piano for no reason whatsoever for 10 seconds. I don't know why that's there, but that's fun. And yeah, and we get a nice little ending where we don't even see the cast all hanging out at home, but we see Tenchi's house. They've got a new fence set up around it with Azaka and Kamidake at the gate, and it looks really cool. That's something I really liked about this show, and this is just a neat thing that I like. I think it comes from when I was a kid. I had Digimon World, the PlayStation 1 game. I loved that game a lot, and you basically explore, you find Digimon, and they join the city that is your main hub where you're constantly going back to, and as you get people to join, the city builds up, and that's what this sort of reminds me of. The whole where Tenchi lives is changing throughout the season. First off, their house just gets plopped into the middle of the shrine area, and then we got the cool hot springs, the bath in the last episode. Now we've got the fence, and it's just really neat how it's sort of being built around Tenchi's house, and how the environment's changing as they're living there, which is a weird thing to really but I do like it a lot. But yeah, great episode. I'm excited to watch the special because I know this episode 7 is an hour long and it's just fun. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think having rewatched this, Kagato is more interesting than I thought. I always think of Tenchi Muyo and I really like the characters, I really like the world. I don't really care about the villains. Kagato was much more interesting than I remember him being. Still not a great villain. He's got a good look, he's got a good presence. He actually has motivations, which I had completely forgotten about. But yeah, a much better villain than I remember him being. Yeah, OVA 1, really good, really strong, still holds up really well. If you're watching this video, you've seen it, you probably enjoy it. But yeah, I can't recommend this enough to anybody that's stumbled across this video who hasn't watched the first Tenchi Muyo OVA. It's a lot of fun, and it's good. It's really, really good. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.